give us a few seconds.
All right. Showing live now.
Yep, you're good to go, Mr. Chair.
All right. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the city's Development and Zoning Review Committee. The purpose of this meeting is to provide this party an opportunity to informally introduce the concept of a proposed development to certain key city decision makers and to allow them to ask questions and provide comments. No decisions or recommendations on the proposed development will be made by this committee. Any proposals for development you hear or see today are in a very early conceptual stage of planning without the city's departments of planning and public works having had the opportunity to review them. Accordingly, discussion of specific details of any proposed development at this time is premature.
I don't know what.
As they are subject to change prior to the formal submission process. In light of the informal and preliminary nature of the presentation today, the public has been invited to attend via the Zoom webinar platform or streaming live on YouTube and learn about concepts associated with this proposed development in your city, but public comment will not be offered at this time. Any person interested in commenting on the proposal discussed today is encouraged to contact their elected representatives and also take advantage of the numerous opportunities to speak before the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council when, if such occurs, the development is formally submitted for the city's consideration. Thank you. And roll call of commission members, please.
Councilmember Brost.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Mayor Boland. Mayor Boland, I see is here. And thank you, Chair Beatty.
Here, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor.
And here. All right. Let's see here. Does the Department of Planning have any opening comments?
Very briefly, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you very much for attending tonight. As is the practice of the department, we have provided for your consideration several items, the agenda, obviously, the bylaws in the event there are any questions about process. And then the petitioner's engineer has provided 2 aerial representations for the purposes of tonight's discussion. One is a larger scale that kind of gives the context of the property that is the subject of the request relative to surrounding areas. And then another is a little bit of a smaller scale that provides information about the proposal itself. It is a mobile batch plant that would be placed on the rear 4 acres of the overall 10-acre site. The department also, as the last piece of information, provided the ordinance that was approved by St. Louis County Council back in the early 1970s for the overall area that is now the Wildwood portion of the Chesterfield Valley. Mr. Stock, I believe, will be presenting for the petitioner, and if there are any questions of the department, that being Travis, Melanie, myself, or Rick Brown, our Director of Public Works, we'd be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Stock, would you like to make your presentation?
Yes, I would. Bear with me just a second, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And George, if you could just tell me what you want pulled up first.
I'll tell you, Travis, if you don't mind just putting up the site plan, because I've just messed up what I was doing here. I apologize. If you could do that for me.
And Mr. Stock, there are 3 others shown as attendees. Do any of those gentlemen want to be promoted and participate in the presentation?
I think they'll participate if there's questions for them, Joe, but I'll take it from here. Thank you very much. And first of all, good evening, Chair, members of the Commission, and Mayor. It's my privilege to be here before you this evening, seeking input questions on this proposal. This particular piece of property, I've personally been involved with Stock and Associates since 2000. We worked for the property owner, Mr. Dennis Gearhart, and we've worked for Mr. Fick, who's developed this over the last several years. And then most recently, we have the Kurtz. So it was a 52-acre piece of property. As Mr. Vunich indicated, in the 1970s, it was zoned. And I believe that zoning was amended in 1985, but generally it's planned industrial M3. There were two subsequent zoning ordinances, amended M3s, that came before the city of Wildwood. In 2020, we were before the city of Wildwood on behalf of the Fick property, which is generally the, as Mr. Vunich or Travis is doing, thank you very much, Mr. Newberry, kind of the operation of Fick, which is very similar in nature of what we are proposing, one of which raw materials are brought into the site, they're processed, and then they're distributed in a wholesale fashion. So relative to Fick, it's generally wood product, it's compost, it's wood, it's mulch. As you see at Wind Road, it's processed, it comes in as raw materials and it's processed. And it's done through M3, an amended M3 ordinance. I believe that's ordinance number 2574. Then immediately north of us, most recently in 2022, was the Kurtz Nursery, came forward on this 15.4 acres and had an ordinance very similar relative to the permitted uses. And generally those permitted uses, they read as follows, and it just, this kind of lays what we're asking for consideration of this committee. But generally, the outdoor storage materials, including sand, rock, stone, gravel, and other similar items, along with the vehicle parking and equipment storage or equipment used at the site for the purpose of these permitted uses. So OBAX Infrastructure LLC, Mr. Patrick Obasui, who is on here, and then his CFO, Mr. John Chmielewski, they're both joining us. I've, over the years, more than 20 years, have worked with Mr. Obasui on projects in North City and also in St. Louis County, the North Park development, as well as his ready mix batch plant in North City. There is a market for ready mix concrete, very similar to the composting, the mulch, the topsoil, the landscape materials that are generally to the north and to the west of us. And then to the east, very similar operations that are within the city of Chesterfield. Of Mr. Gearhart's property remaining is this 10 acres, which we did a boundary adjustment plat a couple of years ago. It's known as Lot A3. That land is available to Mr. Obasui for purchase. His desire is to develop it over phases, and in the western 40% of the site, or the 4 acres highlighted in yellow, would be a mobile batch plant. So what a mobile batch plant is, it makes ready mix concrete and serves the construction industry, which is rather robust here in West St. Louis County and St. Charles County. So the site would be have a perimeter wall of 12 foot high, which would be perimeter block, and the operation would be within that block wall. On the outside, very similar to Fick as well as Kurtz, there's drainage channels and landscaping that would go around the perimeter of the property. We would have an access road that goes out to Etherton Road, kind of highlighted in red. There would be associated with this approximately 10 ready mix concrete trucks. Hours of operation would be from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. The batch plant is within the yellow area, as is the bins, and the bins hold the different types of aggregate and sand and cement. This operation is very clean. Any dust is captured within the batch plant machine. Any stormwater runoff water is recycled and used, and stormwater is contained on site in conveyance channels and would be reviewed by the city of Wildwood and MSD. The remaining 6 acres of property, Mr. Obasui is really acquiring that as an investment for future commercial development that may occur. But as you can see in the site plan, generally the location of this is very consistent with the zoning and the operation of Fick and the soon-to-be Kurtz, which is under construction at this time. And so the access road, while shown in red, I think we have the alignment off a little bit. As we hit Etherton Road, we'd actually align that with Wardenburg Road and then come into the site. So there's this in expeditious manner of drawing that. But that's really our proposal. I did send a slideshow a little bit about OBAX infrastructure, if interested, but I think really today's goal with this committee, Mayor, elected officials, is whether or not the city of Wildwood believes that this is an appropriate use. We certainly believe it's an appropriate use in the industrial zoning, and not a whole lot different than the 2 operations which are immediately to the west and to the north. I think visually we are not as tall. I mean, I think some of those mulch piles are much taller than what we are. We are really contained behind the 12-foot wall. So visually, while being west of Etherton Road, we are cognizant of the property to the south, which still remains a industrial zone property, but with a residential use. But residential homes are quite a bit further south, as you can see into this. And and there's a pretty extensive wooded area that provides a buffer. So I'm happy to answer any questions, as the rest of our team is, and we certainly appreciate your time and consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stock. Are there any questions from the committee? Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, I guess I'm still a little concerned about the pollution from the stormwater and how it's going to be contained, as well as the dust particles. The particulate matter that, since it doesn't have a roof structure, concerns me a bit. Just not seeing the plan for how to contain that wastewater, because we have the waterway very close by, and wouldn't want to increase the alkaline nature of that water drastically from all of the concrete chemicals.
Yeah, it's really no different than how we designed the FIC. Again, the same thing. A little bit. Their machines actually don't have the dust. You know, they're the machines that actually mulch and convey that are centrally located. Our batch plant is centrally located. We do have a vacuum or a bag that removes the dust. Any particles on the site or the surface runoff goes into swales where the solids are trapped and removed before that storm water, runs. Ultimately, all the storm water, just where the storm water goes, it drains east out to a major channel that's the substantial channel being 45-foot wide with 4-to-1 side slopes, runs parallel to Etherton Road. It is then conveyed ultimately under Etherton Road. For the most part, it's held on site and infiltrated as part of this project, but ultimately it will go to a reservoir, large reservoir that is northeast of our property within the city of Chesterfield, owned by the Monarch Chesterfield Levee District. So again, the treatment that is being done by FIC, the treatment that is being done by Kurtz, the treatment will be the same with this particular property.
Okay, but still, what FIX is working with and the concrete mix has a little bit different properties.
Well, the only difference with the concrete, it's rock and it's aggregate, and the only thing that's mixed into that is cement, and the cement is contained within the batch plant and the trucks themselves. So the cement isn't, it isn't disposed of on the ground or offsite. But the raw materials are generally the same as what both Kurtz and mostly Kurtz. Kurtz has got, I don't know how much rock and gravel and sand FIC has. FIC is mostly compost and wood materials.
Okay. Well, what about there's no roof, right? It's just walls around.
That's correct.
Okay. And the trucks will be coming and going. Was that a gravel road that you have proposed, or is that a paved road?
That's a good question. I don't know if that's determined. I think for the most part, the roads are paved. There'll be gravel within the area, within the containment area. If the city's open to gravel, I think we would consider gravel just from a maintenance standpoint. But once you get up to Etherton Road, at least that section, a section within the site would have to be paved. And again, the frequency of our trucks are small. It's 7 to 8 trucks a ready mix, and then you have a few trucks that bring in the raw materials. But it's not a heavily trafficked trucking operation because it's small. It's rather small.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what the regulations are about it, but I would think you would need an impervious surface for that roadway, just so you're not carrying things, but carrying
material on the
in and out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there was one other thing I was going to ask you about. Oh, the noise mitigation for the trucks going on, because there are Chesterfield houses across the street. Is that going to increase the noise with 10 trucks? You said 10 ready mixed concrete trucks.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to, I mean, obviously those are 10 trucks a day that aren't on the road today. But they're not out of the ordinary of trucks. There's a ready mix plant that's further to the south of our property down off Centaur Road. There's a lot of heavy trucks that are associated with both Hertz and Fick as well. So I mean, everything's zoned industrial, both within the city of Wildwood and on the opposite side of the road. The only difference is you have an M3 zoning, they have a PI planned industrial district over there. But I don't think that we're going to have an adverse impact. And again, the hours, 7 a.m. to 3, Monday through Friday, rather limited.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mayor Bullen, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, is the proposed development consistent with the current zoning, or would any changes need to be made to accommodate that?
Mr. Mayor, I believe there'll be a required rezoning to refine that general ordinance done so many years ago. And also then allow us to ensure that if there is runoff, it's captured appropriately. And equally important, to collect any traffic generation assessment fee that would be applied.
Mr. Stock, do you have any elevations that will show? I know you've talked about a wall and, shrubs or whatever, but I mean, it would be helpful, I think, if we could see. Well, it would be helpful to me, I'll speak for myself, if I could see what the end result of that is going to look like as someone is driving on Etherton Road.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have an elevation this evening, and we certainly could advance a drawing showing elevation and perspective from Etherton Road, but the distance, it's several hundred feet back. So 12-foot concrete wall, around the corner, you've probably been down in the valley, you've seen the concrete walls. Gateway Studios would be the best example, I could say, of the block walls. If you happen to be at Spirit of St. Louis Boulevard and Chesterfield Airport Road, you'll see the stacked block walls right on Chesterfield Airport Road. They're about 6 feet tall. They're in front of Gateway Studios, and these would be 12. So it almost looked like a concrete tilt-up building, basically 12-foot walls, because it's concrete. But we can certainly create the drawing. The only visual that I've submitted to the city to date is actually a cut sheet of the mobile ready mix, plant itself, that facility. But
so Councilmember Clark has, raised her concerns relative to, some of the environmental impact, and those are obviously relevant. I mean, I don't have a problem conceptually with the nature of the business and where you're wanting to put it. My concern is what it's going to look like once it's in place. And I hear what you're saying, that the mulch, is out there and so forth, but respectfully, a mulch pile is to me a little more natural oriented than a 12-foot concrete wall that spans vast distances a few hundred feet from Etherton. So I think what I would suggest, if the rest of the group is agreeable to this, is that we see, and we can wait and see if Councilmember Brost or the chair, have any other items to add to this, but I would suggest that we have another meeting of the group after we've seen some greater detail as to Councilmember Clark's issues and what it's exactly going to look like once it's done.
Mayor, I think that's fair. I don't think that's a very difficult task for us to create that perspective from Etherton Road so that you can see it back. I think you'll be pleased. I mean, it's obviously going to be industrial in nature. I'm confident of the, it'll be industrial, but I think you can break up that plane of that wall with junipers and some vegetation along it that helps that. Relative to the environmental concerns, I think we can best address that in a narrative as to how we deal with the stormwater and provide that. I mean, again, ultimately, those details usually come a little bit later. So if I can just deal with that in a narrative, that'd probably be the best way for us.
Yeah, if Councilmember Clark's fine with that, I'm fine with that. I think what you meant to say is it is Wildwood industrial.
What did I say?
Just industrial.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, we'll put some green in there. There'll be some. Understood.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilman Brost, did you have any comments?
I don't think I have anything to add. I guess, one is Joe, back to the environmental, would that be, I'm assuming there's layers of work that gets approved in that regard where, the elevation, I guess I would find the elevation helpful now, but in any event, there'll be some type of work with respect to the environmental issues, I would assume. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, very much so.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think, it wasn't asked me, but I just like to offer, I think we're going to be in the exact same process that the other two petitions were, where we have an amended M3 and there's performance criteria, and then there's a site development plan and the site improvement plans. We get into all the calculations and the details. So I don't think we're looking for a process that's any different than the two that have occurred on this property with those other two uses.
And Mr. Stock, I appreciate that, but as you mentioned, we have a ready-mix plant down on Centaur Road, and the adjoining property owner has to deal with some runoff from that's tainted with that dust from the product. And so I think the concerns of Ms. Clark and our mayor are legitimate in that you show washout areas, we have storage of cement, other materials, raw materials. So I think it's critical that we address how those things are going to be captured on the site, retained on the site, and then certainly they don't impact other sites or the waterways in the surrounding area. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions or concerns?
Mr. Chair, we'll work with Stock and Associates and his partners, and as soon as we get the information that's been requested by the committee members, we'll get back out to you and see what a convenient date would be for everyone. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, I did want to mention that one of the attendees' hands are raised, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Let's go ahead and bring him in, and we can address his comment or concerns.
And Mr. Stock, the gentleman that's being promoted, he is affiliated with the request. He's not a person from the public.
Okay, thank you.
I'm asking you.
Oh, I don't know.
It's Patrick.
Oh, Patrick. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right. Welcome in, Mr. Obasui.
Okay, I don't. Okay, can you?
There is an echo.
Oh my God. I don't know. Can you just tell them that?
Do you have it up on two screens by chance?
Let's take this. No, let me close this one.
Oh, we lost him.
It sounded like he had two monitors or something going.
Mr. Chair, it looks like they exited the meeting.
Okay.
Well, I think we have our marching orders, and I know you're all short on time, and it's 5:55. I will coordinate with Patrick and follow
We
up.
appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilman Bros. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a good night.